All right. Well, thanks, Bree. I know you're there somewhere with Do Space. We want to thank Do Space today for the opportunity to come to you today. We're excited about the topic today as well. And first of all, though, I'm Jim Reif with Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and BC Clark is my colleague. She will be presenting today on leadership in times like today and how important that is, given the fact that it seems like the world is constantly changing and how important that is. But first, a great big shout out to to Do Space for giving us this space. As all of you know, Do Space is a great resource for all your technology needs and a great resource to the public. We're with the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and we run a CDFI which supports small and micro businesses by providing capital through revolving loans, by providing training, just like what we're having here today, as well as providing coaching and one-to-one support. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to BC Clark, and she will lead us in the session today. Thanks, BC.
Oh, you bet. Well, thanks and welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about leaders and team engagement. With COVID-19 going on, a lot of things in the workplace have changed. Over the past 3 weeks, I've been talking with different individuals, employees, and just listening at some of their concerns. I think that when something like this happened, which hasn't happened in, forever for us, but I think leaders they're on a certain wave. I think employees and teams on a certain wave. And I got to tell you, we all kind of have to kind of listen at each other, come together and be able to kind of work together to make things happen for both sides. As the workplace have changed, parts of the world, now it's opening up, things are loosened, restrictions are being loosened up for COVID. And so, now you're getting ready to transition back to work gradually. Some people are going in and working different hours. I think one thing too is that it's so much uncertainty that individuals are just kind of feeling a little uneasy. And the threat remains that COVID can come up and they're looking for maybe it to have another burst in the summer. But let's talk about some of the things that we could do perhaps to help our teams and our leaders that going forward, I think would be very helpful for them. And we have to remember that during this time, I would have to say that empathy, listening, and to the teams, the employees, and just kind of feeling where they are and what. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today. One is that as a leader, we have to kind of envision what success looks like, what we want it to look like, because right now we can't focus on the present. It's a lot of uneasiness, uncertainty. So if that leader is envisioning and talking about where they're going, this brings that team and the employees out of that circumstance of being right there in the present with so much uncertainty going on, but allowing them to focus ahead, looking at what things can be, and getting their input in some of this. There are a lot of different guides out there to kind of help leaders and employers to kind of set a tone for going forward for the recovery, but understanding that there are a lot of things that are happening right now because some of the team members and employees, daycare is not all the way there. So they have that thing. There's a lot of things going on. And I think we all have to kind of just get on the right page in order to help. But preparing to go back to work, leaders have an opportunity, I think, to review those, your organization's goals, your models, look at the expectations, a lot of your standards and what your expectations are from them. And then kind of reflect on some of those things, allowing your employees to be able to look at some of that and move on with that. Because transitioning back, some people have been home for 4 months, 5 months, and some longer. They've kind of gotten into a groove, and so things are kind of working for them, but they may not have daycare. So we have to kind of look at these things and kind of think about, okay, what do we need to do? But we have to anticipate a new normal. That's for one thing, and what is needed now. And it's not to so much focus on what's happening right now, but to get past that and look at some of the things that we can look at when we're looking at future success, looking at that, and then presenting some of those things, that will help some of the teams kind of identify some quick wins. It allows them to get out of the present and look forward to what's going to happen. The other thing is for leaders to embrace trust. And when I think about that, I think often about Stephen Covey and what he said. He said that trust was really one of the things that he said, trust is like the glue of life. He said that it is the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. And when you think about that, we have to think right now, because trust is something that if you had a team already and you were working on the same page, things were going well. This is even a time now to really, really begin to just realize, how can we expound or enhance the trust that we had in them? Because working at home didn't mean that they're not being productive. I think as most people seeing that they were just as productive or more productive being at home. But I would say that leaders just need to be encouraged to focus on future success, clarify those goals, look at the next steps, and look at those, what quick, effective actions can be taken. Envisioning what that will look like, it frees up our employees from thinking about right now their daycare situation or whatever it is that they may have. And it helps teams to, again, identify those quick wins and moving forward. But I think right now leaders have an opportunity also to review some of their policies and procedures and what things that could change, allowing those teams to reflect on what has worked well for them while they've been at home, and then seeing what they need to either start, stop, or continue, or be able to discuss what things they can do to achieve the goals that that employer or that team leader is looking for. At this time, leaders are transitioning, and they should transition their business from the state of treading water. It's been touch and go, and people feel it. It's really sensitive, but now we have to really start looking ahead and moving toward a restored future, because that's where we need to be. Even if another crop of COVID comes up, we still have to look at how to run our business, how to run our organizations, and do that in a manner that everyone is being protected and taken care of. Again, embracing the teams to succeed by embracing their trust. And now is the time to build on that foundation with acts that unite your team. There's a lot of teams that are split up right now. They're not talking, or they're not being cohesive because they're all working at home. But now is the time for that leader to bring those together, whether it's through Zoom until you get back to the office, or whatever you need to do to help the productivity keep going. One of the other steps that they said was to make productivity sustainable. Now, the workforce today, it does demand thinking about the organizational work. As we knew how it was to work in the office, it won't be that way for some time. We're talking about social distancing and moving your work cubicles around. So right now we have to kind of look at all of that, establish some boundaries, and then ensure that the work hours and things are still going to happen, making sure productivity keeps going. Teams should be allowed to discuss office hours, share the tips. What have they learned about tracking their time while they've been at home? And then learning how to set clear expectations in responding to emails. One employer has said that there were 77 emails that one employee wasn't answering because she thought since she was at home she didn't need to. So just making sure that people understand what our expectations are as leaders and as business owners. The benefit to businesses from the pandemic is, at one time we all thought that you had to be face to face in a meeting. Well, they're saying now, we found out that that's not necessarily so all the time. That businesses have been grinding. They didn't come to a halt because of it. We've been able to have Zoom meetings all across the nation, and people are finding out that these meetings are even more productive. So sometimes we have to stop and look. Yes, we had a pandemic, which was an interruption, but we still have to think about what we need to do going forward. And I think if we can focus on those things, and that's what they're actually telling us, and all the data that I pulled together here today was that, let's not focus on where we are, but let's focus and let's engage our teams to think about, next week, in the future, but not the current situation right now. And I think that you'll find that they have a lot of things to say. So we want to make sure that we're keeping them engaged as well. We talked a little bit about the recovery playbook, about documenting what things you've had to do to get back to the office. And it may not be, for another couple of months, but what things is it that you have to do, and what are your expectations for your teams or your employees as they begin to come back? We want to keep them healthy. We want to make sure we're communicating with them. And we also want them to know what the next steps are. So we want to make sure that we're communicating, we're understanding that it's not a perfect situation over the last few months, and it may not be for a couple months, but we have to learn how we're going to work and be productive going forward. And I think that's what this is all about, learning how to lead and engage the team or employees as we go forward. So whether we're leading and communicating change, or if we're prioritizing the health and well-being of our employees, our teams, our customers, we have to make sure that we have all of that documented. So we want to make sure that you're documenting your recovery playbook, understanding, what are we doing operational? What demands that we have? But we also have to remember to encourage empathy, to listen, so that we can make sure that we're making it safe for everyone, but also listening at what things they may have. There may be traveling issues. There's so many what ifs today. So allow the teams to discuss. Make sure you're having discussions, and leaders should initiate those discussions, finding out where they are, what are they thinking about, what's their status, how are they feeling about things? Because with, when you can get them to a point where they feel that you're concerned about what they're doing, they'll be more productive in what you're asking them to do. So just make sure that there's discussions, open talking, allowing them to just speak what they have on their mind, so that teams are engaged with the vision and continue to move forward as you want them to. Especially if you have critical areas of need, you want to make sure that you develop plans around those, so that people are continually moving toward the recovery. Not that they're staying still. And it's important to do that. So many individuals right now are in that place where they're just feeling so confused in so many ways. But I think the one thing that we have to do is to make sure that our teams are on point, that they feel that they're needed. And we have to continue to do that. That's not something that is going to change for a couple of months. I know some people are back in the offices, but I tell you what, there are so many that are not, and they're wondering, how is it going to work? Some will probably stay home forever. Not forever, but for a long time. It will feel like it's forever. A couple of more tips that I think is really important is that we need to prioritize our people over ourselves. So making sure that the teams, whatever the things that they need to do and keep in place, making sure that we're listening at them so that they can do the things that they need to do. We need to exhibit vulnerability and empathy so that teams know that we care. This is not a time that anyone should feel like they're under a hammer, but it's a time that everyone should come together and talk about what they may need to change and how they should be putting things in order. Most leaders are saying that in dealing with COVID-19, that they have to demonstrate more clear and consistent, messaging. They have to show compassion, solidarity with their teams and their employees. So the best thing is to kind of just be open to hear what things they may be going through, but making sure that your expectations are clear, that everyone knows what the goal is, that you have set production so that you can achieve those goals, so that we're not stuck in this current or present situation of the pandemic. We need to move kind of past it, even though it's not over, but we still have to conduct our work and the things that we need to do in order to get to where we're trying to go. We still have to achieve goals, no matter how it feels or what we're thinking about. Leadership demands an emotional connection with our people. It's important because there are so much emotional things that are happening that it can affect our productivity. However, though, if there's open conversation, leaders to their teams, understanding and just sharing what things may be bothering them or what things that they can't do or can do, and then setting up times for those work things to happen. So in other words, if someone says, I don't have childcare, I can't work, but from 8 to 2, and then I can come back on at 4. I mean, we need to work out things so that we still get the work done, but making sure that we're taking into consideration that this COVID-19 has impacted everyone. So even though you have a business to run or an organization to lead, those individuals that are under you have some of those same issues in a different level. So we just want to make sure that we're practicing empathy. That's something that kept going on throughout all the people that I spoke with. They were saying this was the time now to really practice empathy. Expecting all employees or teams to resume to what they call a normal so-called workplace is not realistic right now. And when you think about that, that's true, because some people are not in their offices yet. They still are reeling through some things, financials and things like that. So it's just a time for us to really kind of come together and understand that, it takes all of us to get things done to achieve those goals, but we need to feel good about where we're going and how we're getting it done, and still understanding that there's productivity to be done. A lot of the challenges that have come up over the past few weeks and months with people going back to work was that a lot of the, for travel, there was a lot of individuals that were saying, it was kind of inconvenience because I was carpooling with individuals to go back and forth. And now those individuals are no longer going in the same direction. So now I'm driving, or, now my daycare, I can't take them till a certain time. So we just have to be open as leaders and as employers to understanding what it looks like out there. It's not normal at this point in time, but we have to assume some type of normalcy. We do that by coming together, listening, and talking, and understanding that, with families, we just have to be mindful of the ongoing health concerns, challenges juggling childcare and school, homeschooling, and all of that. All of that's playing a part. So it's not normal. I know that school will be opening up pretty soon, and some of the employers told me that they've had to set different schedules for their employees, and organizations are saying that their teams are kind of doing different things, different shifts. So we have to look at all of that, because when something isn't normal and we still have to get work done, we have to look at what we need to do to make it happen. And as leaders, we come together and we brainstorm and we bring the best ideas out that can get us to where we need to go. So I think that when we think about that, practicing empathy is really huge. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. The other thing is to provide access to support for those emotional, for emotional wellness. People are concerned, with financials and health and all these things. So if we can make sure that we're providing some kind of support, and it doesn't have to be monetarily, but just listening and expressing that you understand what they're going through, because this isn't a very easy time. The other thing that I thought was really good was that when they talked about it, they said that allowing, by listening to their employees, they seem to the employees felt better, that they heard what they had to say and they were looking at ways that they could make things happen. And a couple of employees told me that it seemed like it made them more productive. So, I mean, whatever we have to do to get the work done, I think is really important. Just remember that we're all working in a particular area of uncertainty, and we need to know how to make sure that we can get to where we need to get to. And the other thing, they said that to reopen with people first culture in place. So in other words, it's not about, making sure that, all the money is happening, but making sure that it's people culture. So in other words, make sure that we're including, that we're making sure that people feel like they're in the right place, that they're doing the right thing. So just make sure that you're looking at all of that, because I think a lot of that is going to play really big in getting us back to some kind of normalcy. And as I talked with over 10 to 12 employers, things that they were saying was that they had to look at their business as they began to reopen, and then reset some things. So change some of their procedures that they were doing, making them setting those for different times. So the employers had
an opportunity to come in and even make suggestions on how they could do whatever they need to do better. I think that was important too. So more creative and thinking on how to make the workplace safe was one of the things that people were talking about as well. So we just have to make sure that as we're opening up and we're bringing people back in the office, you want to just get, take a temperature of their emotional status, I would say, from what most of the people were saying, that you want to look and see what needs to be done. Look at how many can return over a staggered period of time so that you ensure connections with people continuing with those at home. That was another one. Continue to deliver that honest, open conversation, transparent communication, making sure that people were highlighting the organization's vision, keeping that going so people can keep the focus on where they need to have it at. Looking at the values and the core focus, that's really important. Begin to appreciate and recognize and then start to celebrate. That inspires people to be motivated to get things done. You want to make sure that you're doing that, and be mindful of people's different circumstances. There are different ones. Some people have families, some people don't, and we have to differentiate the two and see what each need so that we can get the most productivity out of them. So we want to make sure that we're doing that as well. And begin conversations with your teams about what the future looks like, helping them to see things through what is happening right now. And that's really important, because if they can visualize or focus on where they're going and understand and looking at the goals that they can achieve, this is going to make them a little more motivated about where they're going. And I think that'll help stimulate the innovation of new ideas and new creativity in the workplace. And that's going to be really important. But remain connected with people and making sure that they understand what the needs are, and so that they're continuing to be productive and achieve the goals that you've set for them. Looking at if there's some that are not coming back, then you may have to hire new people. But those are things that we can kind of look at and begin to model and put in place right now. The other thing is to make sure that you're listening to your employees, as they reset and come back to the office, or even being staggered. What things are they seeing that could be changed? A lot of them have put up some great ideas for moving the whole workplace and setting things up. So you want to listen at what they have to say, where they're going, what they're trying to do, making sure that you're keeping on point with the goals of the company or the organization, as well as making sure that the individuals, your teams, and your employees are set as well, so that we're all moving in one direction. I mean, that's where we really want to be. We want to make sure that we're all moving, and even though there are trying times, we have to continue to move forward. I think that's the one thing that a lot of organizations kind of felt that, oh, the pandemic is over, now we can just get back to work. But they soon found out that that wasn't the case, that people weren't coming into certain restaurants or things, that people wasn't moving as fast as they wanted them to come back in. So at this point, they're still kind of staggering everything. So let's, I think the one thing that we can do is stop for a moment, take a few minutes and just see, what is it that we need to do? How can we get back together? We may need to look at new workspaces. We may have to renovate current spaces. We may have to shift our thinking about, teams and how to collaborate in a shared office. All those things are up in arms, but people are thinking about it. These are some of the things that came out as I interviewed several people. But listening to your teams with purpose and understanding will be crucial in going forward and helping them being engaged for the future products and services that you plan to have taken. If there's any questions, I can take some of those, and I do have a couple of more steps, but I wanted to make sure we kind of got things, got some of the most important steps out, making sure productivity was sustainable. They were saying that today's workforce demands that that you're thinking about organizing your work ahead of time, making sure that you establish those boundaries and setting or resetting courses for how things get done. So I think that when we think about that as leaders and as business owners, we have to make sure that we're doing, I call it desk checking. We look at what things are right now in isolation, and then how should they or could they be once we get back in the office or get back to wherever we're going to for our normal work when that happens. And talking to a lot of organizations, they found out that teams had wonderful suggestions for going forward, and they were ready to move forward in the future, looking at what things that they could do better. And I think that that's why it's important to make sure that you're listening at the teams and your employees to see they've discovered some things that will help the organization grow even faster. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. We want to make sure too that in this transition, and even though it's gradual, but that we're making sure that we're touching all the points that we need to, so that when we're into the office, everyone is engaged and the vision is still right there in front. So even if it means communicating about what the vision is again, so maybe you did 3-4 years ago, but it doesn't help to put that vision in front of individuals now and say, you know, how can we get to this faster? And I'll tell you, over the pandemic, they're coming up with some phenomenal ideas. So you want to take time and just hear what they have to say. Jim, I can take any questions right now if there are any. And do you have any questions, Jim?
No, I just want to reiterate, though, the importance of communication during this time and finding ways to go out of your way to communicate the best you can. You know, I know people don't like to be micromanaged, but that doesn't mean we're micromanaging. It may mean that we're trying to listen more and trying to hear better. So it's a perfect time to practice our listening skills as well.
I think so. I think that when I spoke with a couple of organizations, they were saying that they are just listening and that they're finding out that there's a lot of good input coming from those team members that have been in isolation but still working. So I think it's really good, Jim. That's a good point that you made, to make sure we're listening. So that was kind of the end of the presentation, Jim. We talked about making the productivity sustainable, establishing boundaries. I mean, all these are things that we want to make sure of. And then we talked about allowing teams to discuss, you know, the office hours. You know, can I come in at 3 or 9 or whatever works, as long as productivity happens. Again, and just looking through and making sure that we have all the things that we talked about, making sure that we're looking at our recovery playbook. So that is the end of our production.
All right.
It was
so if
quick.
anybody has a question, we'd be happy to take that. When's our next event with DoSpace?
It's July 20th, and that's on financials, understanding how to read your financials. And that'll be a really good one. So financial management for small business. So that'll be a great one. And then I think following that is the 27th, July 27th, and we'll be talking about how to network and connect effectively so that you can build your pool or your pipeline of potential clients.
Super.
And that'll be a good one as well.
All right. Well, I think I don't see any other questions coming through, but we want to thank DoSpace for giving us this opportunity. And those of you that are in Omaha, make sure you do check out DoSpace when they're open. It's a great resource we're blessed to have. And we want to thank Bree. She's in the background somewhere hiding. But
yes.
Bree, thanks a ton for you and all that you and the DoSpace do for us. We really appreciate it.
And then also, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just to let individuals know that the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, that we are there if they need any assistance. We do technical assistance, a lot of training, like one of these today, but we also do business planning. We do business resumption. If you're looking to write your business plan, we have a 4-hour workshop where you can actually write your business plan. We provide the laptop and the software. You bring all of your data and you can go through the motions of writing that plan in those 3.5 hours and walking away with your business plan. So just be conscious of that and check out our website. www.nebbiz.org. We normally list all of our training on there, whether it's at Do Space or 75 North or wherever. We usually list all of our stuff there. The other thing is that we also do loans. Our loans go from 1,000 to 150,000. So if you're a small business, you're an entrepreneur, and you have everything intact, and you're at that stage where you're thinking about going to borrow money, and you have all your financials, your business plan, and all the things that are required, please come and check us out. Again, we're the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. Our phone number is 402-685-5500. And we're located in four places actually, but we have an office at 1516 Cummings Street, which we're not in right now. We're working from home. But again, our phone number, our website is right there. If you need to speak to any of us, just pick up the phone and give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you.
Super. Well, thanks again, and thanks for everybody in our audience. We really appreciate what you're doing. Small businesses are key to our economy, so thanks for the important role you're playing for our economy. And I think with that, we are going to sign off for this week.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.